Jason, I almost liken where we are with college football player acquisition to the NFL in this way. With the NFL, you've got the draft. That's the heart and soul and the lifeblood of building an NFL roster, but you also have free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so now and you see various analysts giving out NFL draft grades that don't deal with free agency. So the team could have a great draft but pick up nobody significant in free agency, or they could have a marginal draft by everyone's standards and evaluations, and pick up a boatload of talent through free agency. Likewise, now with college football, we've got a recruiting ranking that used to be everything. You looked at the recruiting ranking, okay, 2022, Oklahoma's number 10 in the country. And until proven otherwise, it was generally believed that's probably about where that recruiting class was going to sit and produce on the field. Well, now we've got almost a free agency component, just like the NFL, where in the transfer portal, said team could be picking up significant contributions through the transfer portal or not necessarily much contribution and be losing a ton. And so that has to be evaluated as well in terms of the rise or fall of that particular team from season to season. So it's kind of where we stand with college football and Oklahoma in particular. You kind of slapped me upside the head with a tremendous number here of hosting 9 transfers here in the next few days.
Yeah, so it's kind of spanned through the week and into the weekend, Mark, that Oklahoma's hosting about 9 guys that they feel strongly about coming into this to the spring schedule. So there's no real in the true meaning of the word free agency. There's no real deadline from a spring perspective when these kids have to be enrolled. Obviously, they have to be enrolled to participate in spring practice. But the idea is that a lot of these kids want to be on campus. Starting to kind of go through some of these off-season workouts and be with their teammates. So yeah, Oklahoma has 9 on campus, and I'll through like I said through earlier this week through Sunday. So I'll go through those. There's one of which who's probably not going to be with Oklahoma. Chuba Purdy, who is who's the brother of Brock Purdy, who visited Oklahoma earlier this weekend. Now it looks like he's Nebraska bound. He's actually already in the student database. He hasn't actually come out and said this yet, but I've seen from several sources that he's there in the Nebraska database. So I think that's really where he's at. So I think the biggest guy that's actually in Norman right now is Jaxson Dart, so quarterback from USC who's transferred, and it looks like it's between right now. I think Oklahoma and Ole Miss are the 2 leaders, and I think from some of the things that I've been seeing, it looks like Oklahoma might be in a little bit of a lead right now. So it's him and Michael Trigg. Michael Trigg is the tight end from USC as well. So it looks like they might be a package deal for Oklahoma. So if that's possible, and I think these things are going to be moving fairly quickly early in the next week, I would assume, just because of the fact that they were Oklahoma's spring semester starts on Monday or Tuesday with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But I think that's going to be interesting to see how quickly that moves. So it's absolutely not a done deal. I've even seen some commentary that an Ole Miss visit that was scheduled for Saturday, Sunday might not even happen at this point. So I think Oklahoma's in good spot right there with Dart and Trigg combination. A couple of other guys from a defensive back perspective that I would be a little bit surprised if Oklahoma doesn't land these 2. C.J. Colden, who is a defensive back out of the University of Wyoming, and then Trey Morrison, who is another defensive back out of North Carolina. So Colton has been at Wyoming for a couple of years. I think this will be. I think he'll be either a sophomore or junior if he comes to Oklahoma. He really hasn't scheduled any other visits besides Oklahoma, so I think that's what really kind of leads me to believe that he is very strongly on the Oklahoma side. Trey Morrison, again, I think from everything I've heard, he's a senior. This will be his final season in college. I think Morrison, again, he's along the same lines of Colton that looks like could be potentially headed towards Oklahoma. So really good. That it's going to be really good for Oklahoma to get a couple of guys on the defensive backfield. Latrell McCutcheon had announced his intentions at the transfer portal earlier this week. So that brings in a little bit more for Oklahoma in the defensive back area. So a couple of other guys that Oklahoma's in on the defensive line. Jeffrey Johnson, who is a defensive lineman from the University of Tulane, played Oklahoma, was very, very impressive against Oklahoma this year, and where he went was he's already visited Oklahoma. Was very pro Oklahoma on his on his visit, and then through social media. So I don't know what other visits. He's got a lot of big time offers, at the high blue blood level as well. So another defensive lineman, Mikhail Wingo from Missouri, is going to be visiting later on this weekend as well. So don't have a lot of intel just in terms of where he's leaning right there. So he could be a little bit of a wild card, but outside of the Dart and Trig, maybe the most exciting guy that's going to be visiting, and I've heard that's going to be either in today or tomorrow, is Drew Sanders. Drew Sanders is a linebacker out of Alabama, probably one of the best portal guys, that's there from the defensive side of the ball. Originally committed to Oklahoma, in his cycle, decided to go to Alabama, played a decent amount for the Crimson Tide this year. Again, I hear that from what I'm hearing, that's Oklahoma, that's Texas, and that's Arkansas. I think Oklahoma has a leg up, just in terms of I think what Venables brings to the defensive side of the ball is and we'll see. This kind of remains to be seen, Mark. But I think that's bringing, a little bit more credence to where he wants to be. I think Oklahoma leads for him. I don't know that I wouldn't say it's again a foregone conclusion, but right now I would probably say maybe 60-40, 70-30 in favor of Oklahoma right now, based on his previous commitment to Oklahoma and just the staff that Oklahoma has in place there.
All right, so to run this down player by player, Oklahoma's picking up a wealth of experience if they get these guys. So first and foremost, you got Drew Sanders. He actually is the least experienced of them, but in regards to top-end talent, wow. Third-rated player in the state of Texas in 2020, top-rated athlete, top 20, 25 player nationally. And he got on the field and played quite a bit, as Jason mentioned, with Alabama this past season. 7 games, 24 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. And obviously wasn't seeing the type of playing time that you would expect a 5-star to receive. The rest of these guys have a wealth of experience, the least of which would be the Missouri player, Mikhail Wingo, although he did play in 9 games this past season. 27 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. He also had a pick 6 as well. Jeffrey Morrison Jeffrey Johnson, first and foremost, will hit him, the defensive tackle at Tulane. Not that you can really lean on numbers, especially at D tackle, but he's played in 42 games at Tulane. So he's been a starter since he was a freshman at nose tackle. Mm-hmm. and is producing. This past season, 44 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. He has 10 career sacks at Tulane. Then you've got the North Carolina defensive back, Trey Morrison, with 47 tackles this past year with 2 tackles for loss. He has a couple career picks, and he's played 44 games at North Carolina. Then you also mentioned C.J. Colden out of Wyoming. He played 13 games, so the full schedule plus the bowl game for Wyoming this past year had 67 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. And he's got 2 career interceptions, and he's played 25 career games as well. And Michael Triggs, a guy that played some tight end at USC, caught 7 passes this past year. And then we come to, of course, Jaxson Dart. The story on Jaxson Dart was he was not a player that was that highly regarded as a quarterback playing in Utah as a high school quarterback until his senior season. And then he just took off and became a guy that was much coveted and went to all the elite camps and impressed. And again, had a breakout senior season, recruited and signed at USC. Keaton Slovis, starting quarterback there at USC, was hurt at one point in the season. About halfway through the season, Jaxson Dart took over. And even when Slovis was ready to go, Dart maintained the job through 9 touchdowns with 5 picks, 62% completion percentage, about 1,300 yards for Jaxson Dart, which brings us to Jaxson Dart, Dillon Gabriel. Quarterbacks are looking for the clear-cut opportunity. And it seems like you believe that Jaxson Dart's leaning Oklahoma, but of course that would set up quite the quarterback battle between Dillon Gabriel and Jaxson Dart.
It would. I think it would be if that comes to fruition. And I think, the one thing to keep in mind with this, Mark, is, things change. You could come to campus, or it could, I don't know how this kid feels about the competition side. I think based on what Dillon and based on what Ole Miss has coming back, maybe that's a better spot for him to feel like he can start immediately. But if he does end up coming to Oklahoma, I think it'll probably be the biggest quarterback battle that Oklahoma's had coming into the spring, and obviously and through the fall, than they've had in quite some time. Probably the biggest one that comes to mind would have been the initial season that Baker Mayfield was eligible, and Baker Mayfield and Trevor Knight, battled it out there. So, yeah, no, I think that would be a big, a big addition for Oklahoma. Gabriel's a little bit older, just in terms of, so Dart would have a little bit more eligibility remaining. But yeah, I think it would be very, very interesting what that quarterback competition would look like should Dart actually make it to Norman.